Hello, Dolphins fans. It's been a busy week, and we have some important things to share with you. The Miami Dolphins draft strategy is gaining more focus after the NFL Combine, and based on the latest information, some important prospects are emerging as serious targets for Miami in the early rounds. I'll tell you everything that's going on. But first, make sure you've hit the like button if you believe the Miami Dolphins should look for another quarterback to give us more security next season. I say this because many believe it's time for Tagovailoa to leave. We know he's not in the best moment, and if we want to make the playoffs, we need a more agile QB. Leave your opinion on this here. With free agency approaching, this mock draft could be the last look at the Dolphins' possible draft picks before roster changes begin to shape the team's true needs. But let's get straight to the most intriguing selections, starting with a potential game-changer in the secondary. With the 13th overall pick, the Dolphins have their sights set on Texas defensive back Joty Baron, a rising star whose versatility makes him an intriguing prospect. Baron, who played primarily at cornerback at Texas, has the skill set to transition to safety at the NFL level, making him a potential replacement for Javon Holland or a key piece in the cornerback rotation alongside Jalen Ramsey. His performance at the Combine showcased elite speed, clocking in at 4.39 in the 40-yard dash, putting him in the top percentile for speed. While concerns about his height persist, his coverage ability is undeniable. Last season, he allowed less than 50% completions and did not concede a single touchdown, a remarkable feat for any defensive back. NFL insider Daniel Jeremiah even compared Baron to Brian Branch Jr. of the Detroit Lions, a player known for his ability to cover and support in the run game. Whether Miami views him as a cornerback or safety, his coverage skills and physicality make him a logical first-round target. However, his rising stock means there's a chance he might not be available when Miami is on the clock. If the Dolphins secure him, he could step in as an immediate contributor in the secondary, filling a crucial gap that could emerge depending on free agency moves. Moving into the second round, the Dolphins appear to be targeting Arkansas defensive lineman Landon Jackson at pick number 48. Jackson's stock is climbing after a standout performance at the Combine, where his explosion metrics, including vertical and broad jump, ranked in the top percentile. At 6 feet 7 inches, he has the physical tools to be a dominant edge rusher, and his combination of size and athleticism makes him a great fit for Miami's defensive front. The Dolphins' interest in a front seven player early in the draft shouldn't come as a surprise. Miami's pass rush needs depth, with veterans like Bradley Chubb aging and Jalen Phillips entering the final year of his contract. Pairing Jackson with Chop Robinson would set Miami up with a promising young edge duo for years to come. Additionally, with the team still searching for a long-term answer on the interior defensive line next to Zach Sealer, Jackson's versatility as an inside-outside lineman makes him an ideal target. If he's available at 48, expect the Dolphins to give him serious consideration. In the third round, the Dolphins turn their attention to the offensive line, selecting Georgia interior lineman Tate Rage. Radlage's Combine performance catapulted him up draft boards, ranking in the top 5% of all offensive linemen in terms of athleticism. This could make him an ideal fit for Miami's zone blocking scheme, which relies heavily on linemen who can move in space and create running lanes for the team's explosive backfield. Radlage's limited playing time at Georgia due to injuries raises some concerns, but when healthy, he has the tools to be a starting caliber guard in the NFL. If the Dolphins don't address the offensive line heavily in free agency, Rage could be an essential piece in revamping the interior line. Heading into day 3, the Dolphins add a potential sleeper pick at tight end, selecting Texas gunner Helm in the 4th round. Helm's Combine performance was underwhelming. His vertical jump and 40-yard dash were disappointing, leading some to question his athleticism. However, it was later revealed that Helm suffered a significant ankle injury during his first 40-yard dash attempt, which heavily impacted his results. A black and blue swollen ankle wasn't exactly the ideal condition for a standout performance, and Miami's coaching staff seems to understand that. Despite the rough Combine, Helm remains an intriguing target for Miami. The Dolphins met with him during the Combine, along with multiple other tight ends, signaling their clear intent to draft one in the middle rounds. With Jonnu Smith entering the final year of his contract and Durham Smythe no longer on the roster, Miami is looking for long-term depth at the position. Helm's size and blocking ability could make him a solid developmental piece, even if he isn't the most dynamic pass-catching threat. Another day 3 target with major upside is Illinois wide receiver Pat Bryant, who Miami could select in the 4th round. At 6 feet 3 inches, 200 pounds, Bryant brings the physicality Miami could use in the red zone and as a future complement to Jalen Waddle. With Tyreek Hill's contract and age suggesting he might not be in Miami beyond 2024, the Dolphins need to start planning for the future at receiver. Bryant's ability to block in the run game also aligns well with Mike McDaniel's offensive philosophy, which places a high value on receivers who contribute beyond just catching passes. In the 5th round, the Dolphins addressed the linebacker position by selecting Penn State's Kobe King, a physical downhill linebacker who could provide depth behind Jordan Brooks and potentially develop into a starter. King's ability to stop the run is his biggest strength, though there are concerns about his pass coverage ability. However, as a rotational linebacker, he could be a valuable addition to Miami's defense, particularly if the Dolphins don't add significant depth in free agency. With another 5th-round pick, the Dolphins select Oklahoma State running back Ollie Gordon II, a former All-American who led college football in rushing in 2023. Gordon's 2024 campaign didn't quite match the previous year's production, and his 4.61 40-yard dash wasn't eye-popping. However, at 6 feet 2 inches, 225 pounds, he brings a physical, between-the-tackles presence that Miami currently lacks in its backfield. Jalen Wright and Devin Achane provide the speed and explosiveness, but Gordon could be the power back that rounds out the running back committee. The final rounds of the draft see Miami making depth selections, including Memphis quarterback Seth Hennigan as a developmental project, Alabama safety Malachi Moore as a late-round steal, and Jacksonville State offensive lineman Clay Webb to provide depth along the offensive line. This mock draft suggests Miami will focus on defensive depth early, particularly in the secondary and along the defensive line, before turning to offense in the later rounds. With free agency set to reshape the roster, this could be the last mock draft before we get a clearer picture of Miami's true draft needs. Now, we want to hear from you, Dolphins fans. What do you think of this potential draft class? Would you be happy with Joty Baron in the 1st round? Should Miami target the offensive line earlier? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's get the discussion going. As we move deeper into this discussion, let's break down some of the bigger storylines surrounding this mock draft and what it could mean for the Miami Dolphins heading into the 2024 season. One of the most debated picks in this mock is Joty Baron at number 13 overall. The idea of Miami selecting a defensive back in the 1st round might be met with mixed reactions, especially considering that the offensive line is still a concern for many fans. But when you take a step back and look at the bigger picture, the selection starts to make more sense. First off, versatility is the name of the game in today's NFL, and Baron fits that mold perfectly. The Dolphins' defense under new leadership could value a player who can move between cornerback and safety, especially if the team loses key pieces in free agency. With comparisons to Brian Branch Jr. and his ability to make plays both in coverage and run support, Baron could be an instant impact player. However, the biggest question remains, will he even be available at 13? His stock is rising fast, and if another team sees his potential as a game-changing defensive back, Miami may have to adjust their approach. If the Dolphins do go defensive back in round 1, that means they are likely relying on free agency to address the offensive line. Chris Grier's history suggests this is a real possibility. Miami has often preferred to sign veteran offensive linemen rather than use high draft capital on them. So, after breaking down this entire mock draft, the big question remains, how do Dolphins fans feel about this approach? Is focusing on defense in the early rounds the right call? Should Miami prioritize offensive line earlier? And what about the future of the wide receiver position? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Do you agree with the picks, or would you go in a different direction? Drop your opinions below, and let's get the discussion going.